right, this is the Voice of Motown podcast. I'm Tyler Pepe.
And I'm Brandon Cork, and this is the WVU Sports Podcast by two suffering WVU fans.
All right, please subscribe to our page on YouTube. It's the Voice of Motown podcast. Share your thoughts on today's episode in the comment section. Tonight, we are going to discuss how WVU can fill 3 available spots on their basketball roster. Would you consider this past season a success? And are we shocked that there are no Big 12 teams in the Final Four? And finally, what are you most excited to see at the spring blue and gold game? And to help us do all of that is Voice of Morgantown's own Brad Smith. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
What's up, guys?
Thanks for hopping on today. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%, man. Let's dive right into this. Let's start with basketball since the season just ended a week or two ago. West Virginia has 3 scholarship spots available, with Keedy Johnson, Eric Stevenson, and Emmett Matthews out of eligibility. Also, Jamal King and Josiah Davis have announced they are transferring from the program. WVU was 2 roster spots over last season. They had 15 guys on the roster, and you're only allowed 13 scholarships. And that's why there's only 3 spots available with 5 guys leaving. But with all that being said, what type of players or positions would you like WVU and Coach Huggins to address with those final 3 roster spots?
So for me, I definitely think 2 spots should definitely be allocated to at least a point guard and a big wing, someone who's at least 6'6" or bigger, preferably both that can shoot. I mean, right now, I think losing Keedy hurts a lot. I think Joe was good most of the time last year, but he's been a streaky shooter. He really is at his best when he's drawing fouls. He kind of tends to dribble a little bit too much, so I kind of like him more in that 6th man type of role. It'd be nice to have another point guard in there and someone who can shoot the ball. Someone who could, help take off some of the load that we lost with Eric Stevenson graduating as well. And, that kind of makes me think of Kerr. I'm going to butcher his name, Creasy. I don't know if that's how you say it or not, but I feel like, he'd be a guy, great passer, great shooter that could help fill both of those voids. Then number 2 would definitely be a big wing, someone who can pass the ball a little bit, primarily a good defender, can be a good secondary or tertiary scorer, kind of like what Emmett Matthews brought. If we get someone who does a little bit better than what Emmett did, that'd be great too. And then for the 3rd spot, I would just love to get best available. I think we can't go wrong.
Yeah, what do you think, Brad?
Winners. Guys that make shots. I was going to answer questions like Bob Huggins tonight. Guys who don't throw the ball away, guys who make shots. Yeah, I mean, if you watch the NCAA tournament, I honestly don't think positions matter anymore. I want like 5 Jason Pages. You guys remember Jason Page?
Oh yeah.
I mean, just guys who can shoot, who can slash, who are winners. I just want that type of player. So I know we're weak. I don't think Jimmy Bell is a starting center. I think he may have been the worst starting center in college basketball. So I would like to get a true center. That would be nice. But other than that, I just want guys who win and win. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking out of those 3 spots, I want 2, if not all 3, to be players who can contribute immediately. So hopefully we get 2, if not 3 transfer guys to come in with those spots. Because like Brandon said, we're in desperate need of a point guard who can distribute the ball, create scoring opportunities for teammates. Hats off to Keedy Johnson. I thought the last month or 2 of the season that he played very, very well. And I think it's going to be hard to fill his shoes. You brought up Joe Toussaint. I like Joe. I think he could even be better next year, the same way Keedy was for us. He improved a lot over 1 year, and I think Joe could fill those shoes. However, he can't play the entire game. We do need another point guard out there who can distribute and make sure the offense doesn't go into a big lull. And both of you brought it up. I think a winger is a big need that they need to fill. Also, a versatile guy who can play the 3, the 4, kind of like how Emmett Matthews did this past season. if they have that guy on the roster who can step up and improve this offseason, great. But if Coach Huggins doesn't think they have that on the roster, I think they need to fill that in the portal as well. And if I had to pick the last spot, I'm kind of with you, Brad. I think I don't know if I want another center, but I don't think it would hurt. Jimmy Bell is okay. Obviously, he can't score. He's very scoring challenged, which is frustrating. But I think he does some of those other little things pretty well. However, do I want him playing like a majority of the minutes at center? Not really. I think Okonkwo, really stepped up and played well. And I think with a year to develop in the offseason, I think he could be that guy who kind of sneaks in and takes that role.
Yeah,
I think sure. I think Wagi as well. Wagi is fantastic. He showed a lot of promise. And Okonkwo, or as my dad would call him, Aranako. He always never pronounces it correctly. But, yeah, he showed a lot of promise as well. So I just think, someone who, those guys are still pretty raw. I don't see them being 15-10 players next year. So somebody who could step right in and get 15-10 would be beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think the way I would like to see it is Okonkwo gets a majority of those minutes next year. I think, we definitely saw with him battling injuries last year and part of this past season, he's made a lot of progress. And I think next year is the perfect time to put him in there and play him 25 minutes a night. And Wagi can play the other, 10 or 15. I think those are the two guys you roll with. And then Subnik, if he comes back, I feel like he's, the perfect guy to kind of bounce and eat up the rest of those minutes at center, play some minutes at 4, things like that. And kind of to your point, Brad, where, you don't necessarily need to have all 5 positions. You don't need to have necessarily a true power forward. You can go out there and get a couple bigger guys, bigger wings who can go out there and score. And, I kind of look at what Kansas State did this past year, grabbing Noel and Keontae Johnson out of the portal. And that just kind of completely revitalized their team. I mean, I had them as, I think, the only Big 12 team making the Final Four in my bracket. Unfortunately, they didn't make it that far. But, I mean, those two guys with a point guard who can distribute and score and a big wing who can do a little bit of everything for you, that can carry you a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. And Brandon, you brought up Carissa earlier, and I think that would be a big get if we could get him because he is a huge contributor to the offense, not only scoring, but I mean, he feeds other guys. He had 5 assists per game last season and almost double digits, 9.9 points per game. So that would be the perfect guy to play with Joe Toussaint and trade off minutes. But as you were researching, all this guy does is chuck up threes. Like, he does not shoot inside the 3-point line, but he was shooting 37% from 3. So I can live with a guy who's going to come in, get assist, and when he's open, hit the 3 ball. I mean, I'm not sure if we can get him. A lot of people are saying he's probably going to go with Sean Miller, his old coach, who's at, I think, Xavier now. Mm-hmm. But I don't think WVU is out of it by any stretch, but I don't feel like they're the front runners at this point.
That's the one thing that kind of confuses me with Creasy is, how's Bob Huggins going to react to someone who doesn't want to drive the ball, doesn't want to get into the lane, especially when his shot's not falling. I mean, that's something that we hear Bob Huggins talk about a lot is, we're not attacking the basket. We're not making layups. We're missing layups and things like that. And Creasy, that just really isn't his game. So, how does that work out? And is he a good fit for Huggins? I would love to have him. I think he's a great player for, the modern college basketball game, but I'm just kind of curious how the fit with Huggins will work and if Huggins is going to adapt to accommodate a guy like him.
Yeah, his personality is a lot like Eric Stevenson's. He's really like Eric Stevenson on steroids. I was watching a lot of highlights, and he's just very fiery. I'm sure very prone. I didn't look up the stats to see how many technical fouls he had, but I'm sure very prone to that, to having technical fouls. So you have to wonder how he would get along with Bob Huggins. Bob Huggins wants players that, kind of keep it together on the court and don't show a whole lot of emotion, I think.
And you nailed it. I was about to make that comparison. He reminds me of Eric Stevenson. And I thought Huggins handled Stevenson pretty well this year, better than I actually thought he would. Yep. Because although Stevenson had like one or two incidents that got everyone fired up, I thought Huggins handled it well. He didn't like absolutely bury the guy. He kind of coddled him a little bit, saying he made a mistake. He needs to fix it. If he does it again, then he's gone. And so I feel like that kind of prepped him for a guy like Carissa. But like you said, Brad, he does seem like Stevenson on steroids. So I don't know if they're exactly the same, but hopefully if he does come, maybe Eric softened him up to a personality like that a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, guys. I mean, this kind of ties in with what we just talked about, so we don't have to dive into it real big, but what do you think WVU's biggest weakness was last season, and can they address it, whether it's through the portal or through guys already on the roster?
I think it was just guys kind of disappearing at the wrong times. I felt like, we probably could have been better at center, but I felt like, defensively we weren't the worst, and offensively we obviously weren't getting 8 points there, but I really felt like it was, for whatever reason, most nights we only had one guy kind of going off, and if we didn't have a second guy come in and give us 20, we were losing those games. So I mean, that's what happened in Maryland. But if you look at when we had multiple guys scoring 15-20 points a game, I mean, that's when we went on that nice little run there at the end of the season. So it was really just consistency between our secondary scorers.
Yeah, he's talking about Trey Mitchell, I think, is who you're talking about.
Yeah,
but Trey Mitchell just disappears over and over and over again, the same way that Jalen Bridges did previously the last couple of years with West Virginia, and really Emmett Matthews as well. They just sometimes they're outstanding, and then it's 10 minutes later, and you're like, wait, are these guys still on the court? So, can I say something controversial about Emmett Matthews too, real quick? He, I don't know if you remember, but in the second half of the loss in the NCAA tournament, he ran into somebody. I guess he hurt his shoulder. But if this is my final game in collegiate basketball, I'm not sitting it out. I'm getting back in the game no matter what. And I just can't imagine that his shoulder was that hurt that he couldn't play.
I mean, I know he came back in at one point in that game, but
I thought he sat out the rest of the second half.
I think he did come in towards the end a little bit, but he wasn't himself. He wasn't able to score and put up points. But I don't know. I don't want to bury the guy because maybe I would assume it was a big injury if he knows that's his final game. So I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, it was a moving screen that probably could have been called a flagrant foul. Would Big 12 roughing that game?
I'm playing in the second half. I don't care. I'll play with one arm.
Yeah. I mean, that guy did that. I don't want to bring it back up because the game's long gone, but I mean, that dude just did that multiple times and they weren't calling it.
Yep.
So that was frustrating, but that kind of leads into the next two things I wanted to discuss. Would you consider this basketball season a success after missing the tournament last year, the previous season, I guess I should say, because that season was an absolute disaster. They won 3 more games this year, made the tournament. Would you consider this year a success considering how bad they were the year before?
I would say yes. And my reasoning behind that is, I mean, we made the tournament and, I felt like we corrected the ship halfway through Big 12 play where it looked like things were going bad. We brought back a team that had, counting 1, 2, 3, 4 guys on the starting lineup who were brand new, and probably two of our top 4 guys off the bench were brand new as well. So, I mean, we brought in 6 out of our 8 or 9 top rotation guys out of the transfer portal, and, we won 17 games. I know a lot of other teams are doing it too, but it's not something that we've seen from Huggins before. So it reassured me a little bit that Huggins is adapting and figuring things out as the college basketball changes pretty rapidly.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a success. Like Brandon said, we made the tournament. That's all that matters. You get into the tournament, as we see, anything can happen. So just getting into the tournament is a big success. Winning 17 games when you're in the Big 12 is is a big success. So I think what Brandon said as well, that Bob Huggins doing as well as he did in the transfer portal, that's huge for our program. That's something that if we would have said that 2 years ago, we would have thought, no way, there's no chance that he's going to go out and get these players in the portal. So big success. And I think we have an opportunity to do even better next year, especially if Trey Mitchell comes back.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I know it wasn't a great season, but I thought it was a step in the right direction. Considering what they did the year before, and they won 3 more games. They competed in the tournament. They only lost by 2 points to Maryland in the first round. And I know a first round exit stinks. We were all disappointed, but at least they competed. They didn't embarrass themselves in the program. We've seen in years past where we've lost by double digits in the first or second round, and that leaves a horrible taste in your mouth. That Maryland game, although very disappointing, I wasn't embarrassed to be a WVU fan after it. I think the real test will be this upcoming season, like you guys kind of alluded to. Will Huggins continue to improve the program and move it in the right direction, or will they take a couple steps backwards because he has some important players to replace? We were mentioning their names earlier. Coach has had rough seasons here and there during his tenure at WVU. But he always seems to bounce right back after a bad year. But can next year be that really good bounce back year we're used to seeing? Or, are the rumors of the game passing him by going to come back up? I think the amount of success we see next season will actually play a big factor in whether Bob Huggins decides to stick around for a while or pack it up and retire soon, because as we all know, for as much as the fans hate losing, Huggins seems to really hate it. And it seems to take a toll on a man who is aging. So I don't want to, put words in his mouth, but I feel like next season is going to be a big factor in how long we see Huggins be the head coach at WVU.
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's a few other things I'm kind of watching coming into the season too, because, obviously we need to bring in some talent to flush out the roster. But, with Huggins, we don't know how many more years he has left. I definitely don't think it's more than maybe like 3. And on top of that, the way that he's approaching the transfer portal, and it seems like, with the success that we had this past year, he's going to hit that pretty heavy again going forward. What does that mean for those 4 or 5 year guys that we're used to having on the roster? I mean, outside of Okonkwo, if we bring in 1 or 2 more guards, is Kobe Johnson and Seth Wilson going to stick around? And what does that mean for the team, long term? Are we going to see any high school recruits coming in, or as long as Bob Huggins is here, is it just going to be transfer guys? And I don't really care which way we go, but part of me as a fan and a longtime fan for WVU is going to kind of miss having those guys for 2 or 3 years that you can consistently root for. So, I would love to win at any cost, but, it does kind of, it feels a little bit less personal whenever you're just living and dying by the transfer portal. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, I feel like where WVU is, and as far as program prestige, I think you kind of have to do it that way, because you're not up there with like the North Carolinas or Dukes who's getting all of the top guys. I feel like you kind of need to just pick the guys who are leaving those major programs to get your best talent, because if you get a guy to come here for 4 years, that either means he didn't have great success or he's probably not that good, because if he's super, super good at WVU, we're probably going to see those guys leave, unfortunately.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because, the last 4 year guy really was Javon, and that was really before the transfer portal. So, and we saw with Deuce, he got so good so early that he went pro. So it's a great point. Either they're going to go pro the first chance they get, or transfer if they get good really quickly.
Yeah, I think this is Huggins' last year. Regardless, he's going to be 70. This is his last year in the contract. I know he loves the game, and I know he loves to win, and he wants to win a national championship for West Virginia, but I can't imagine him signing another contract into his 70s, especially with the state of college basketball the way that it is now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. So that kind of leads us into what I wanted to talk about next. Are you shocked no Big 12 teams made it to the Final Four after they were hyped all season long for being the best conference in the regular season? Brandon, what do you think?
I think, I had two teams as kind of the teams I thought were most likely, and I thought that was Kansas and Kansas State. I think Baylor was a little bit of a flawed team. I didn't really know what to think of Texas, and they made it further than what I think I originally thought they would, just because, the whole coaching situation and, they're a really good offensive team, but how good are they defensively, things like that. But, Kansas seemed like a complete squad, and Kansas State had guys that just look like what a tournament team, a Cinderella in a tournament team does, even though they were the 3 seed. They had like I said earlier, the great point guard, the wing who does everything. I mean, that's the key to success for deep tourney runs. I mean, look at the UConn teams with the Kemba Walker. That's what drove them. But that Kansas lost to Arkansas, that kind of shocked me. And I think that just kind of showed what type of season this was for college basketball, where, the field was a little bit more balanced than what everyone thought. The mid-majors were a lot better than what I think some of these more blue bloody type schools were. And, it just kind of balances out with that experience and getting players from the transfer portal versus these schools who are relying on guys who are in their second and third year. Even though Kansas had a couple older guys who were really good, they were still trying to give significant minutes to freshmen. And, even like what we saw with Brandon Miller in Alabama, where his numbers were atrocious in the tournament. It just kind of goes to show you that once it hits tournament time, those experienced players, those seniors, those upperclassmen, those guys who have, probably played 100 college basketball games, those are the ones who are going to perform. And these younger guys, it's really hard for them to win games in the tournament.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. I thought that there would be maybe one team or two teams that would make it into the Final Four. Kansas, to me, was athletically way better than most teams, and I thought that they would be in the Final Four for sure. Kansas State, once the tournament started, wow, I really thought that they were going to be in the Final Four as well. They really came together as a team, and Noel, wow, is just he became my favorite player this year. So I just think that they're. I was surprised to see them lose their last game.
Yeah. And I mean, they barely lost. It was one possession, so they were very close to being in the Final Four. And I'll admit, I'm a little shocked. However, the Big 12 did have two teams in the Elite Eight. So like we just said, I mean, they were very close to having teams there. And also, look at who's in the Final Four. You got Florida Atlantic, and San Diego State made it. This has been a strange tournament. Not one single 1, 2, or 3 seed is in the Final Four. That's the first time that's ever happened since they began seeding in 1979. So I'm not going to hold it against the Big 12. And heck, there's really no Power 5 conference that has huge bragging power. The only Power 5 conference team is Miami. And credit to them, especially since the ACC took so much flack this year. But, the fact that the Big 12 has no teams there, most Power 5 conferences don't. So it's just been a weird year.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I this has been one of the most enjoyable NCAA tournaments that I've watched in a while. Just as far as it being fun to watch. It's just interesting that it just seems like anybody could win this year, and that gives me hope for the Mountaineers in the future too.
Yeah. No, I think that's one thing that I look forward to in the future too, is with the NBA kind of questioning whether they want to keep that one and done rule or let guys go straight from high school. I think that's going to, we're going to see more tournaments like this in the future where you have guys who are sticking around more, and some of these more ultra athletic, ultra talented 18-year-olds will just skip college altogether. And, we'll get to see guys who stick around more, maybe bounce around through the portal, whatever ends up happening. But, that it definitely helps some of these smaller schools who can either grab guys from bigger schools or can, just keep their guys around for 3 years. I think that adds a lot of value. And I hope we have many more tournaments like this to come, with one caveat in that WVU makes it one of the years.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, and not only are the upsets fun to watch, but it seems like every game's like coming down to those last couple minutes. I mean, you can just walk in a room and turn on a random game, and it seems like you're glued to the TV because it's a tight ball game every time. You're not seeing a ton of blowouts, so it has been a fun tournament.
Unless UConn's playing, who I actually had in my Final Four. So
did you?
Yeah,
I didn't fill one out this year, but let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about football since the spring game's right around the corner. And I've been hearing people talk about that. Obviously, they're talking about using multiple running backs in the backfield this year, and I've even heard this past week with Greg Hunter and other guys talking about WVU wanting to use running backs in the slot position and other fun ways. Makes for a lot of interesting formation and plays we could see this year. So what are you guys most excited for in the spring game coming up? Do you think they're going to show stuff like that? Because as we know, the spring game can be a little vanilla. They don't want to show their hand a lot before the season.
Last year, I think I was excited for the spring game just because, I wanted to see how things were without Deggy. And, it was a fun watch, but anything translated over to the regular season. I mean, no. Preston Fox looked like a future first-round draft pick wide receiver, the next great wide receiver of WVU. I mean, he was going to put up 1,200 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. But
this was my answer, Brandon, by the way, is to see Preston Fox go crazy and then never play again in the regular season.
Yeah. I mean, great minds think alike, Brad. So, yeah, the spring game, I mean, it doesn't mean anything. So,
no.
Yeah.
Well, I think any of the four running backs that we have could run for 100 yards on any given day. That's big. I'm interested to see Nico. I think Nico is going to take over the team and be the starter. So it's going to be interesting to see him, really get some real reps and to play. I think I'm interested to see Sean Martin. I've heard a lot of good things about Sean Martin on the defensive line, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are right. You shouldn't put a lot of stock into the spring game, and last year was probably the biggest evidence of that ever. I mean, Goose Crowder had the best statistics playing quarterback, and then he never played in the regular season except for, against the School of the Blind that no one cares about that game. And, yeah, Preston Fox put up big numbers. There was defensive guys who had big days who were atrocious during the regular season. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock into it. But there are things I'm kind of excited to see. I want to see how Nico and Green play and how they, not so much just their athletic ability. I just want to see if they're out there making good decisions because we know both guys are athletic. It's just whether they have the mind to really thrive at quarterback. I'm always excited to see our backfield. I think they have a lot of talent. But if I had to pick one guy, I've been hearing so much about Devin Carter, the former NC State wide receiver. And we need a wide receiver to step up and make plays. Rodney Gallahger, of course, is exciting coming in, but I'm going to try to be fair and not expect great things from a freshman. So I'm looking at Devin Carter to really step up and be that go-to guy. Because although everyone knows WVU is going to be run heavy this year, you got to pass the ball occasionally, pick up third downs here and there if you want success. So I'm hoping that he can go out there and make some highlight reel catches and get people excited.
I think the one thing that kind of bums me out and tempers my expectations for Devin Carter a little bit is that this is the same song and dance that everyone did with Bryce Ford Wheaton every year. And the coaching staff couldn't figure out how to get it to work. Either that or he just couldn't play in the game. I'm not sure which one it is. I kind of lean towards the coaching staff screwing things up, but I don't know what good it does to hype people up before the spring. I mean, it's great to kind of give the fans some hope. That's all well and good and give the fans some hype, but I feel like it puts a lot of pressure and expectations on these players. And, I feel like, at times people were critical of what Bryce Ford Wheaton did because he wasn't, a 1,000-yard receiver, put up 15 touchdowns because the coaching staff said that he was that type of special player, and it never materialized. He was a really solid college football wide receiver. He just wasn't the next great WVU wide receiver, and that's fine. But don't build up that expectation.
Yeah, Neil Brown named Devin Carter the number one receiver already, and is acting like he's this that he's produced at a high level at NC State. The most catches he's ever had is 32 catches in a year. So I don't know what Neil Brown's thinking, that this guy's going to come in and his vanilla offense and be the superstar receiver, but I don't expect that at all. So I think Devin Carter gets maybe 20 receptions. I'm excited to see Rodney Gallahger. But like you said about Bryce Ford Wheaton, I saw the 13th highest rated wide receiver since they started the NFL Combine. So as far as he is an extraordinarily gifted athlete, and for him to be kind of like blah as a wide receiver, it's shocking. And it's Neil Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know Bryce Ford Wheaton has the athletic ability. That's what they always hyped him for. He could go up and make, one-on-one grabs. His big ding was always he just couldn't get separation. And I think you could even see that watching the games. Now, again, is coaching staff a little bit to blame for not scheming well? Maybe. But he is getting interest. I saw that he was invited to the Combine, and Sam James wasn't even, getting any interest at all. And so
Sam James ran a 4.5 40 though, so that was surprising. Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah, I heard compared to the two, people weren't giving him a lot of attention. But yeah, we knew Sam had speed, and honestly, his only knock was he just couldn't consistently catch the ball. Other than that, he was always a solid wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, and to kind of close my thoughts on Carter too is just, I think it's fair to temper expectations. He's probably not going to be 1,000-yard wide receiver, but that's okay. If he just catches the ball and, is a solid receiver, that's great. I think, if the offense is going to be successful this year, I don't see one guy right now that strikes me as someone who we should all expect to be 1,000-yard receiver. I think if we get 4 guys that are somewhere between 400 and 600 yards receiving, then I think the offense is going to be doing pretty well. But that's kind of what the distribution needs to be to see an effective offense this year.
Guys, can we be honest? Randy Moss is not going to get 1,000 yards in Neil Brown's offense. Gary Rice is not getting 50 catches in Neil Brown's offense. So come on now.
No, I don't think anyone's expecting that either, especially in an offense that's going to throw the ball less than they ever have. And they weren't even able to get 1,000-yard receivers with a pass-heavy offense. I'm just excited that maybe he's a guy that almost like Shorts from a decade ago, who it seemed like anytime we needed a third down pickup, he would get open and pick it up. And I think he could be that. I've heard it. Neil Brown didn't hype me on Carter because Neil Brown, it's his job to talk up his players. It's been the reporters lately saying he's snagging down one-handed Odell Beckham catches in practice. And I know it's just practice, but just little things like that is making me think maybe he's a little better than I originally gave him credit for.
And I just want to be fair too. I'm still salty about Caden Prather leaving. So, Devin Carter is no Caden Prather. Banging that on the table.
But that's another crazy good athlete that didn't really live up to expectations in that offense.
Yeah. So to move on from the spring game, we just saw that Rasheed Marshall got hired at WVU, which is awesome because he has been a fantastic ambassador for the university ever since he graduated nearly 2 decades ago. And so he's always been a fan favorite. It's great to see someone like that being brought in. I don't know if that's a Hail Mary by Neil Brown to get in the good graces of everyone, but it seems like a solid hire. And for anyone who's wondering, he's essentially going to be like the go-to guy for players. Like if players need something, go talk to Rasheed, which seems like the perfect fit for him. Former player, likable guy. Seems like a slam dunk to me. What do you guys think?
I love it. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with that. And I think it's a role that, even if Neil fails, someone else coming in isn't going to look at him and say, hey, we need to bring someone else in here. Big name for the program. Definitely one of the best 50 or so guys at that WVU scene in the past 30 years or so. So I have no qualms about it, and I'm excited to see him back in the gold and blue.
Yeah, I think it's one of the few moves that Neil Brown's made that I was like, yeah, this is a really good move. I really like this. Um, I, I think I think that if we, if we're struggling at quarterback, you could kind of sneak him in still. He still looks like he's in incredible shape. So that's my thought, is maybe he'll get some playing time as well.
I mean, if we can get away with it, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah. Fantastic hire. I can't see anyone not liking that. And then the last thing we wanted to discuss that I don't know if you guys saw it on social media lately, but Rodney Gallahger, Brad reached out to him and he's basically endorsing the Voice of Morgantown, which is awesome to see. But the fans online are just being ridiculous, attacking him and Brad for teaming up. And I just wanted to get Brad's thoughts on that whole situation.
Yeah, I spoke to Rodney Gallagher several months ago around the end of the football season. And I just told him, hey, we'd love to work with you sometime. We'd love to do an NIL deal with you. He said, he wanted to talk to his dad, talk to his parents. I encouraged that. I said, that's good. He's 17 or 18 years old, to, make sure they do their research and that they are comfortable with it. He came back to me a couple weeks ago and was like, hey, we'd like to do it. Let's do it. So, we did the little commercial with him. I always pay athletes up front just so that there is no shadiness at all. And somehow I get accused of somehow tricking these kids into doing deals, which is the opposite of what I'm trying to do. So, a lot of fans, I guess, went on and sent him messages and posted a lot of negative replies. And so he took the tweet down, which I told him was fine. I totally understood.
Yeah, that's a shame for him. I mean, I think the thing that kills me is the hypocrisy of it all, where these are the same people who are bashing you, Brad, for being too negative about the team. And yet they can go out and be negative and basically kind of bully I don't know if he's even 18 yet, but, a high school student right now to prevent him from getting money. I mean, he already got paid, but I mean, down the road, who knows what could happen. I mean, it's just kind of a mob pressure to only support the things that these loud people on Twitter who don't really know what they're talking about, to support what they believe is right. And they can live in their little bubbles.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. And you guys took the words right out of my mouth. It's a shame that, they're always saying, support these players. Don't do this. If you can, donate to the Country Road Trust Fund, whatever, do this, do the right thing as a Mountaineer fan. And then here's a kid making money and they, just ambush him to the point he had to delete the video. It is hypocrisy at the highest point. And I just don't get it. I don't understand the world nowadays where if you don't like something, you have to pressure everyone else to not like it too. I'm a human being. There's plenty of things I don't like. I don't read it. I don't watch it. And I just move on with my life. I don't message everyone in the world and tell them they can't enjoy it. And that's always been my opinion with the Voice of Morgantown. I mean, I wasn't always a part of the Voice of Morgantown. Before that, I was just a fan. And there would be sometimes I would read the articles, love them. There would be other times I would be like, well, I'm not going to read that one and just scroll on. Why can't all fans do that? I don't get it. If you don't want to listen to the podcast, don't listen to it. If you don't want to read Brad's articles, don't read them. But I don't understand why they feel like they have to pressure everyone else into doing what they enjoy. It makes no sense to me. It feels very childish and like grade school mentality to me.
Yeah, I did a NIL deal with Polycap last year as well, and we had a graphic. It was just go visit the Voice of Morgantown. Nothing major. He had it up for 2 minutes and had to pull it down because he said he got 20 messages telling him don't do business with dangerous Brad Smith, because he's going to rip you off or something. I'd already paid the guy. So, it's just like you said, it's a mob mentality, especially on Twitter. Those guys are just, you can't have a conversation with them. You can't rationalize with them. And it's frustrating.
I wonder if part of it too is just kind of the way that social media is more transactional than it is conversational.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of trying to have a conversation with someone, it's much more of, since I can't argue with you or raise my voice, I'm just going to plant my foot firmly in the ground and not move, because I can only send that one message and I don't feel like replying later on. I don't know, but it's very, very frustrating, because even us as who do this for fun, sometimes it makes it a little frustrating, maybe not necessarily difficult, because it does add some entertainment value, but it does make it frustrating to hear people who just won't get their head out the sand. Last year, for example, where people were just, I think we were ahead of the curve when it came to the Fire Neil Brown train, and people were just not there yet. And me and Tyler are pretty reasonable people, so what does it take to get you over that edge? Do you not want to see WVU win? And I think there's still some people left on that Neil Brown bandwagon that I just don't quite get. But we just want what's best for the program and for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And, we all have a good relationship with Rodney Gallahger. We interviewed him last summer. It was a great interview, I thought. Very mature young man. He was polite. We were polite to him. So, this relationship, like Brad said, has gone back. It's not like he doesn't know who we are. And for anyone who wants to make Brad to seem like this evil man, he honestly isn't. We see how he treats these athletes. He's very, very fair with them. I know you guys don't always see it because you're not always behind the scenes like some of us are, but I just don't get it. I know they want to vilify you, Brad, but I've been saying it for years. You're not a bad guy.
Well, the other thing that bothers me is that we have a lot of competition at the Voice of Morgantown. There's several media outlets out there. There's probably 10 that are covering the same stuff. Where are these guys are they stepping up to do NIL deals with these athletes? I haven't seen one. So where are they at, and why are they not helping out? And it's bothersome to me that, these people on Twitter aren't saying, hey, Brad's stepping up and actually helping. He's the only one that's stepping up and helping. It's like somehow I'm doing some kind of evil deed by helping. It's bizarre.
Yeah. And the kids, especially with West Virginia, I feel like there's very limited opportunities of these kids are going to get. There's places in Morgantown, but outside of Morgantown, is a coal company going to drive up to Morgantown and hand one of these kids a check to promote,
right.
Midwest Southern energy? No. So, every little dollar counts. And, if this buys the kids a meal for a week that they want to eat instead of the crappy cafeteria food, then that's great for them. So let them have their lunch money.
There's Toothman Ford. There's the gas station. What's the gas station that Huggins does?
Little General Stores?
Little General, yeah. And then there's VOM. And I can't think of hardly any other companies that have actually stepped up and tried to help out with NIL in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of any either.
Not once consistently, at least,
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And that's really all I got. Is there anything you guys want to get off your chest before we wrap this up?
No. I think that after the spring game, I'm excited to see things kind of start heating up on the football front. And kind of curious to see how basketball news goes over the next few months. I don't know if we're going to expect to see anything soon, or if we're going to be waiting months. So these are always the hardest months as the Mountaineer fans. So bear with us. If there's some pauses, we'll share news with you as soon as we can. So, we're not ones who are just going to make up drama out of nowhere. We're just going to give you guys the facts and maybe some opinions sprinkled in.
Yeah. We didn't talk about, what'd you guys think of Jarrett Deggy working out with the Mountaineers during Pro Day?
Honestly, I liked it. I don't hate Jarrett Deggy. I know a lot of WVU fans do, but he struggled. I was glad he moved on when he did. But, by all accounts, I've never heard anything negative about him as a person. And so
he's hard to dislike. He seems like such a good guy.
Yeah, he never caused controversy in the locker room when he could have easily done it. I never really saw him lash out at the fans. And I love Skylar Howard, but I mean, he could have went that route and really just turned on all the fans. So I have nothing but nice things to say about him. I think it's great for him. He gets out there and can throw the ball a little bit more before his career's done. And, he got to work with guys he's worked with in the past. So they probably felt comfortable catching the ball from him while they're trying to show off their skills.
Yeah, I thought it was fine too. I mean, like you said, he's a great guy, just wasn't a great quarterback for WVU. And I think it's pretty cool too that he chose to work back out up here. I know Troy probably really doesn't have a pro day, so they'd probably have to go to Alabama's or something like that. But it's cool to see that he chose ours. And it's good to have that relationship too. I mean, it seems like he really loves football and probably knows football pretty well. So it feels like coaching is kind of the next logical step for him. So if he ever becomes something, it's good to know that he still considers WVU something that was significant to him, something that he cares about. And should he become a good head coach down the line, you never know. Maybe he could be someone down the line that we look at as someone who'd be willing to come back here.
Yeah, I know people won't believe me, but my problem was never with Jarrett Deggy. My problem was with Neil Brown's stubbornness and continuing to play Jarrett Deggy. And so I hate that, I saw Jarrett Deggy blocked me on Twitter recently. And I kind of hate that because I don't want him to think that he did anything wrong. He clearly played the best that he could. I just don't think he's a starting Division I quarterback. So, but again, he seems like a great guy. And I was happy to see him back on campus.
Yeah.
And it's pretty incredible too that, through all the trials and tribulations, I mean, he stuck it out. He's still tossing the football around. He's still trying. I mean, that shows a lot of willpower and really just shows how much he loves the game. And I think that's pretty cool as a fan. I mean, he clearly knows what he really likes in life. He found it and he's given it all he's got.
I didn't happen to catch what his 40 time was. Did you guys?
No.
Jared,
any guesses? Sub 5 or over 5?
I would say like 4.88. That would be my guess.
Thinking 5.1.
Yeah, I'm thinking right around the 5 range, whether one below or one over, but he's right there.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah, that's it for us. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. And Brad, hey man, thanks for hopping on. We appreciate when you're on here too.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
Yeah,
All
thanks
right.
for jumping on.
Yep.
Later, guys.
All right. See ya.
Bye, everyone.